since this is about Readers Theater, I don't feel so bad about reading my introduction. In my early school years, most of my report cards mentioned how much time I spent reading, and it was really often at the expense of my other studies. I liked reading certain books again and again, especially the ones that played out like movies in front of my head, in my mind. My classmates didn't really show as much interest in reading as I did, and I really couldn't understand why. In the late 70s, the Chamber Readers of Humboldt County performed at my little two-room schoolhouse in Maple Creek. Finally, I saw the lights go on in some of my classmates' eyes, and we enjoyed, many became readers that week. We enjoyed talking about the books we were reading throughout the rest of the year and the summer. Many years later, I got to see the Chamber Readers at a Key TV Young Writers and Illustrators Awards event. They took one of the young entrants' stories and brought it to life right in front of all of us.
Wow.
This group's enthusiasm for literacy and their ability to lift stories off the page and dance them around the room has certainly steered countless Humboldt County youth into the joys and rewards of reading. As a lifelong reader, I'm honored to introduce the Chamber Readers of Humboldt County, Gloria, Gavin, Tootie, and Scott.
Well, thank you so much for asking us here today. Just wanted to give you a little rundown on the history of Chamber Readers and our mission, so aptly stated by Ian, which is to inspire and encourage young people to read. And we do this with our crazy, active, crazy voices. I think it's good for kids to see adults not be so serious once in a while. But this way, stories come alive. And for many kids, it's their first experience of an actual live performance. They've never seen, they see movies, they watch television. Anyway, back to the history. Chamber Readers was started by a lovely English lady named Jean Wagner, who brought all of her background to bear, and it kind of coalesced in this idea that she brought to her teaching. And eventually, she came up with the idea of a troupe of people to do this like they were doing a theatrical performance. Not like traditional readers' theater, which is very kind of staid and people just stand there and kind of read or sit and read. This is a hybrid form where we act as if we're on stage and take it kind of to the edge. So she brought her background in literature, which being in Britain, there was much more of a stress on literature. And we're talking right about a little bit after World War I, which is a very rich time for poetry. And so that was something that she did kind of in her off-school hours. They did something called elocution lessons. Now, this was not about learning to pronounce English beautifully. It was really a way of teaching kids confidence in public speaking so that they would read poems, current poems of the day, the wonderful modern poets at that time. And so she brought all this here to Humboldt County. And back in the mid-70s, a group formed. Many of her actors were performers at a theater that is now at the old Creamery building. It was called Pacific Art Center Theater. And these were Humboldt-trained actors from Humboldt State. And so they joined in kind of on a volunteer basis at first. And then later on, the program became an official nonprofit. And things took off from there. So my story, my association with Chamber Readers is I was brought in, had about 2 days to rehearse because someone, for some reason or another, had to leave. And so it was my baptism of fire. This is back in fall of 2008, and I'd always wanted to be a part of it. So, and then a couple of years later, the artistic director left, so I said, well, I don't know, I guess I could do it. I've done theater for 30 years, I could probably do this. So that's my story, and I'd like to turn it over to Gavin.
I've been with the Chamber Readers off and on since the early 90s, I guess, like 93, I suppose. and it's been a major part of my life. Even when I haven't been with the regular groups, I've done some sort of side projects, like the Mountains in Motion troupe was an offshoot that did shows at the Jambalaya for a while. But this is, I don't know, this is the regular shows where we go out to schools and see the lights in the eyes of whole gyms full of kids. Just makes it all. It's what my life is about, practically. I can't imagine a better way to spend my time. Aside from such personal anecdotes, I don't know what else I can bring to the conversation.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Tootie. I can remember back in the 70s and 80s, and it was always a desire to be a chamber reader. It was like a big deal and an honor. And so I started in 92 to 93. I had a season with the Chamber Readers, and then was gone for 11 or 12 years and came back a year and a half ago. I find that one of the most exciting things for me is hearing the kids in the audience say, "My mom saw you when you were, in Chamber Readers when she was in school," and that really excites me a lot to realize the history that's involved and that it's being passed down from generation to generation. It's wild. Pretty soon we're going to get, what we probably do have grandkids at this point from the 70s. One of the hardest things about being a chamber reader is sometimes having to get up early, like today. but it kind of makes it all worthwhile when you get there and you get to do what you love to do, and mostly to inspire, like Gavin was saying, seeing the kids' faces and having them ask questions afterwards, and the idea that Ian brought up of kids being inspired to read. It's so good to hear that, because once we're done with our little shtick, we don't always hear back, what the results of that were. So I appreciate that a whole lot. I think that's all I can say about it, except I just feel really special about getting to be part of the group. So thank you for having us. Scott?
My name is Scott Malcolm, and my anniversary was... I've been, actually in December it will mark my 62nd or 63rd, depending on what my memory is, as an actor, year. I've been involved with the Chamber Readers for about 8 months now. I knew all of these people 30 years ago, and I moved out of the area, and I came back just about 5 years ago. Did a couple of shows with Gloria and with Tootie, and now I'm involved with the Chamber Readers. I'd say about 14, maybe 15 aggregate years of that 63 was specifically involved in children's theater and children's activities. And before we get going, I'd just like to see hands. How many people in here have children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews? Okay. How many of them read? Just hands. And how many of them read with you? Okay. And let me ask you a question. If they ask, why do we read, what do you say? Somebody.
They know why.
Say what?
They already know why. They don't ask.
And that is why.
Because they love it.
They love it.
They love it. That's the important thing. Reading is fun, and that's what we're all about. We love to read, and we'd like to take an opportunity right now to show you why we like to read.
We always like to begin with the wonderful story of Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobel. A couple of crazy characters. I like to introduce them as kind of best friends, the sensible sidekick and the wacky toad. And this is another one of their many adventures, The Garden. Frog, what's in his garden?
Toad came walking by.
Oh, what a fine garden you have, Frog.
He said.
yes.
said Frog.
It is very nice, but it was hard work.
Well, I wish I had a garden.
said Toad.
Well, here are some flower seeds. So, plant them in the ground,
Said Frog.
and soon you will have a garden.
Oh, how soon?
Asked Toad.
Quite soon.
Said Frog.
Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds.
Now seeds.
Said Toad.
Start growing.
Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head close to the ground and said loudly,
Now seeds. Start growing.
Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted.
Now seeds. Start growing.
Frog came running up the path.
What is all this noise? My seeds will not grow.
Said Toad.
You are shouting too much.
Said Frog.
These poor seeds are afraid to grow.
My seeds are afraid to grow.
Asked Toad.
Of course.
Said Frog.
Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow.
Oh.
That night, Toad looked out of his window.
Drat!
Said Toad.
Oh, my seeds have not started to grow. Oh, they must be afraid of the dark.
Toad went out to this garden with some candles.
I will read them a story.
Said Toad.
Then they shall not be afraid.
Toad read a long story to his seeds.
Peter Rabbit in the vegetable garden.
All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds.
Raindrops keep falling on my garden.
Toad read poems to his seeds.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water.
And all the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not start to grow.
Oh, what shall I do?
Cried Toad.
Oh, there must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world.
Then Toad felt very tired and he fell asleep.
Toad? Toad, wake up.
Said Frog.
Look at your garden.
Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground.
At last!
Shouted Toad.
My seeds have stopped being afraid to grow.
And now you will have a nice garden too.
Said Frog.
Yes.
Said Toad.
Oh, but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work.
Silverfish. And one of our very favorite writers is the wildly imaginative Shel Silverstein. And this is one of his crazy stories.
While fishing in the Blue Lagoon, I caught a lovely silver fish. And he spoke to me.
My boy.
Quoth he,
Please set me free and I'll grant you your wish. A kingdom of wisdom, a palace of gold, all the goodies in France says you can hold.
so I said, okay, and set him free. And he swam away and he laughed at me, whispering my foolish fish into the silent sea. Today, I caught that fish again. That lovely silver prince of fishes. And once again, he offered me, if only I would set him free.
Very dumber of wonderful wishes.
He was delicious.
And now,
Warning! Inside everyone's nose, there lives a sharp-toothed snail. So if you stick your finger in, it might bite off your nail. Stick it further up inside, and it may bite your bite the whole darned thing off.
That was a Shel Silverstein. Kind of a sneak attack. And now, Yertle the Turtle by Dr. Seuss, which we may need to set up a little bit more.
Cheers.
All righty then.
On the faraway island of Salmasand, Yertle the turtle was king of the pond.
A nice little pond. It was clean. It was neat.
The water was warm. There was plenty to eat.
The turtles had everything turtles might need, and they were all happy, quite happy indeed.
They were. Until Yertle, the king of them all, decided the kingdom he ruled was too small.
I'm ruler
Said Yertle.
of all that I see, but I don't see enough. That's the trouble with me. With this stone for a throne, I look down on my pond, but I cannot see on the places beyond. This throne that I sit on is too low down. It ought to be higher.
He said, with a frown.
If I could sit high, how much greater I'd be. What a king! I'd be ruler of all that I see.
So Yertle the Turtle King lifted his hand.
And Yertle the turtle king gave a command.
He ordered 9 turtles to swim to his stone, and using these turtles, he built a new throne.
He made each turtle stand on another one's back and piled them all up in a 9 turtle stack.
And then Yertle climbed up. He sat down on the pile.
What a wonderful view!
We could see most a mile.
All mine!
Yertle cried.
Oh, the things I now rule! I'm king of a cow, and I'm king of a mule! I'm king of a house, and what's more beyond that, I'm king of the blueberry bush and the cat! I'm Yertle the Turtle, oh marvelous me, for I am the ruler of all that I see!
And all through that morning he sat there up high, saying over and over,
What a great king am I!
till long about noon.
Then he heard a faint sigh.
What's that?
Snapped the king, and he looked down the stack, and he saw at the bottom a turtle named Mac, just a part of his throne. And this plain little turtle looked up and he said,
Beg your pardon, King Yertle. I've pains in me back and my shoulders and knees. How long must we stand here, your majesty, please?
Silence!
the king of the turtles barked back.
I'm king, and you're only a turtle named Mac. Now, you stay in your place while I sit here and rule. I'm king of a house, and I'm king of a mule. I'm king of a horse, and a bush, and a cat. But that isn't all. I'll do better than that. My throne shall be higher.
His royal voice thundered.
So pile up more turtles. I want about 200. Turtles, more turtles.
He bellowed and brayed.
And the turtles way down in the pond were afraid. They trembled, they shook, but they came, they obeyed.
From all over the pond, they came swimming by dozens. Whole families of turtles with uncles and cousins. And all of them stepped on the head of poor Mac. One after another, they climbed up the stack. And Yertle the turtle was perched up so high, he could see 40 miles from his throne in the sky.
Hooray!
Shouted Yertle.
I'm king of the trees. I'm king of the birds and king of the bees. I'm king of the butterflies, king of the air. Oh, me, what a throne. What a wonderful chair. I'm Yertle the Turtle. Oh, marvelous me. For I am the ruler of all that I see.
Then again from below in a great heavy stack came a groan from that plain little turtle named Mac.
Oh, your majesty, please. I don't like to complain, but down here below we are feeling great pain. I know up on top you are seeing great sights, but down at the bottom we too should have rights. Oh, we turtles can't stand it. Our shells will all crack. Besides, we need food. We are starving.
Groaned Mac.
You hush up your mouth.
Howled the mighty King Yertle.
You've no right to talk to the world I rule from the clouds, over land, over sea. Oh, there's nothing, no, nothing that's higher than me.
But while he was shouting, he saw with surprise that the moon of the evening was starting to rise up over his head in the darkening skies.
What's that?
Snorted Yertle.
Say, what is that thing that dares to be higher than Yertle the king? I shall not allow it. I'll go higher still. I'll build my throne higher. I can and I will. I'll call some more turtles. I'll stack them to heaven. I'll need about 5,607.
But as Yertle the Turtle King lifted his hand and started to order and give the command, that plain little turtle below in the stack, that plain little turtle whose name was just Mac, decided he'd taken enough. And he had.
And that plain little lad got a little bit mad, and that plain little Mac did a plain little thing. He burped. His burp shook the throne of the king.
And Yertle the Turtle, king of the trees, the king of the air, and the king of the bees, the king of the house, and cow to mule well. That was the end of the Turtle King's rule. For Yertle the king of all Salamazan fell off his high throne and fell plump in the pond.
Today, the great Yertle, that marvelous he, is king of the mud. That is all he can see. And turtles, of course, all the turtles are free.
As turtles and maybe all creatures should be.
One short one. Okay, and now we're going to finish with a short one, which is a love story. So nice to end with a love story. This has become, I would say, it's really, nobody knows really who wrote this. It's this particular version is by Maria Leach, but this is the Yellow Ribbon. If you know the ending, don't tell the person next to you. It's toward the end.
Yeah.
There you go.
John loved Jane. They lived next door to each other, and they went to first grade with each other. John loved Jane very much. Jane wore a yellow ribbon around her neck every day. One day, John said,
Oh, why do you wear that yellow ribbon?
I can't tell.
Oh,
said Jane. But John kept asking, and finally Jane said,
Maybe I'll tell you later.
well, the next year, they were in the second grade. One day, John asked again,
why do you wear the yellow ribbon around your neck?
and John said maybe she'd tell him later. Time went by, and every once in a while, John asked Jane why she wore the yellow ribbon, but Jane never told. So time went by. John and Jane went through high school together. They loved each other very much. On graduation day, John asked again,
Please, tell me why you wear the yellow ribbon around your neck.
There is no point in telling on graduation day.
so she didn't tell. Time went by, and John and Jane became engaged. And finally, Jane said maybe she would tell him on their wedding day. The wedding day came, and John forgot to ask. But the next day, John asked Jane,
Why do you wear the yellow ribbon?
Well, we are happily married and we love each other. So what difference does it make?
So John let it pass, but he still did want to know. Time went by, and finally, on their golden anniversary, John asked again, and Jane said,
Since you have waited this long, you can wait a little longer.
finally, Jane was taken very ill, and while she was dying, John asked again, between sobs,
Please, why do you wear the yellow ribbon? Please, tell me why you wear the yellow ribbon around your neck.
All right,
said Jane.
you can untie it.
So John untied the yellow ribbon, and Jane's head fell off.